So, we typically teach oligopoly last because it's the most complicated market structure. Perfect competition, people just worry about price. There's no product differentiation, so it has the least features. Then we talk about monopoly and we start looking at the trade-off between price and quantity, but still we don't have to worry about things like product differentiation or competition. Monopolistically competitive firms have product differentiation, but they have so many competitors that in a way each firm minds its own business mostly. Oligopoly, the firms have few enough competitors that we think that they start to engage in what we call strategic behavior. And when economists talk about strategic behavior, they don't just mean that people are looking ahead and trying to make strategies to, how to differentiate their product or how to advertise or how to plan their production. When economists talk about strategic behavior, they're talking about a situation where when I choose my actions, I think about your reaction. And maybe then I think about, well, if I do this, what are you going to do in response? And then what am I going to do in response to your response? And then what are you likely to do in response to my response to your response? And so on and so forth. So the tool we use here is what's called game theory. So game theory is a branch of mathematics and economics that deals with strategic behavior. And this is the new feature that we're going to add for oligopoly. So, a couple of concepts or terms that we need to define out there. When we look at game theory, we typically talk about people's payoffs. And payoffs are typically either going to be something like profits, or it could be something like happiness. Whatever it is, payoffs are what you care about. So happiness, if we were talking about it, we could talk about utility, if someone had a utility function, and so on and so forth. So we assume that people want to maximize their payoffs. So assume players want to maximize payoffs. It could be that they want to maximize their profits. It could be that they want to maximize their selfish happiness, but it could also be that my happiness could depend upon your happiness in a nice way, or maybe in a not so nice way. Maybe I'm envious, or I'm a player hater, or whatever else out there. But we do assume that players want to maximize their payoffs, their own payoffs. Okay, so that's how we typically do things. And then we talk about people choosing actions or playing certain actions. The players in the game choose actions, or sometimes we talk about playing strategies. To maximize their payoffs. And the most common way that we present this is with what's called a payoff matrix. And I'm going to go ahead and do one. I'm going to have to look at my notes here. So, I'm going to think about Kmart and Target. And suppose Kmart and Target are trying to think about their strategies. And each firm can choose one of two strategies that it's going to take here. They could go for the low end of the market, or they could go for the relatively high end of the market. And Target can make the same choice here. And I'm going to put numbers in here that are going to tell us the payoffs. If they both go low, Kmart gets profits of 5, or payoffs of 5, and Target gets profits of 6. in this example I'm doing here. And this could be millions or whatever. The exact magnitude doesn't really matter that much. Okay. So notice here, the person who is the first number is this person. The person who's the second number is the person at the top. So this is sometimes called the row player, because this player chooses a strategy which determines which row of the matrix we're in. And this player over here is called the column player. Also sometimes player 1 and player 2. Okay, so if they both play low, they're both competing against each other in the same segment of the market, and they get profits of 5 and 6. And notice Target does a little bit better. You know, maybe it's just a more well-run firm or just is a better marketer. If Kmart plays low and Target plays high, then they're not directly competing against each other, and they do better. So Kmart gets profits of 8 and Target gets profits of 10. If they go the other way, if Target plays low and Kmart plays high, in my example, they're each going to get payoffs like this. And the reason I've assigned these payoffs is I'm kind of assuming that Kmart is a little bit better at serving the low end of the market and Target is a little bit better at serving the relatively higher end of the market. So although they're not directly competing against each other here, I'm sort of saying, well, we're having them specialize against their core competence, so that's going to give us not such a good result. And then if they both try to go after the high end of the market, Kmart gets 0 and Target gets 3. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and stop here, and we'll start talking about what's called a dominant strategy in the next video segment.